We've been exploring the nature of emptiness, but there, no doubt, you've noticed that there's been a change in the tone of the stories over these last several weeks, and you can glean from that we've moved on to another link in our endless chain. But I have a very intellectual friend, and when we start to speak about airy-fairy things, as we call them, she says, "Oh, I have to go into my willing suspension of disbelief mode, do I?" And I just nod and smile, because there's a secret behind this. And that secret has been in practice for all of these years. And that is to take a topic, as you probably remember, and through the process of these stories, to dismantle our conditioned thinking as to what the meaning of that is, whether it be emptiness or mastership or whatever number of the many topics that have arisen over these years. Because that, when we dismantle the conditioning of what it is that we think something is, like a demon or emptiness as it is for the moment, we have the possibility that our experience of what it really is can arise in us. That's the modus operandi. That's the secret that's been in operation throughout all of these years. So there's not an imparting of knowledge here, although there's that chain that goes on that could be considered to be a continuum of knowledge. The mysteries and so forth, as we've delved into over this long, long period of time we've been together. But behind it is this purpose, and only this purpose, to dismantle the conditionings of our mind, in whatever it's relative to, so that there's the possibility of experiencing it. Even when it comes down to life, and our perception of what life is. It's not what we've construed with our mind. And when we dismantle that conditioning, we have the possibility of being alive in ways that we never knew before. So there's my secret. So here's an airy-fairy story. It's the story of a fisherman. And every day he would go down by the seashore, and he would cast the net that he'd made out of handmade cotton that had been woven by his wife. And every day he would draw in the fish. But one day when he was down on the seashore, instead of drawing in his net with fish, he felt himself being pulled out into the ocean. And there he saw a huge leviathan, a huge monster of the deep that had caught his net and was drawing him inexorably into its mouth, until he found himself inside the belly of this great creature. Now, as fate and destiny would have it, it was a cavernous place, and he was able to come into that place and be quite comfortable, thank you very much. So he began to live inside the belly of the leviathan, the huge beast of the deep. But as it so happened, out in the heavenly realms, the great goddess Uma-devi was haranguing her husband Shiva. She wanted to know the secrets of life, the deep secrets of his Dharma. And she begged him and she harangued him to teach her. So finally, Shiva said that he would do so. But he could not do so where anyone could hear, because these secrets were so precious they could not come into the hands of anyone who would misuse them. So Uma-devi had a plan. She decided that they would go to the ocean's depths. And so she went about using her own powers to create a sanctuary under the ocean with beautiful seashells. She made a wonderful little cavern in which they could impart the teachings. And then she invited the fishes of the deep to come round to give it atmosphere. So the god Shiva was quite pleased with this, and he agreed to enter the ocean and to teach Uma-devi these great secrets. But because there were a great gathering of fish in this small place, of course it attracted the great leviathan, a wonderful feeding place for him. So he came around where this was. And so when Shiva and Uma-devi were down in their little sanctuary, and Shiva was imparting the secret to his wife, the walls of the sanctuary being permeable, his voice carried out. And because of the nature of the nearness of the leviathan, his voice carried right into the hollow cavern of this great beast. And our fisherman could hear every word that was being said. So he drank in these teachings. But as it happened, the lulling of this feeling of the water and the wonderful ambience put Uma-devi to sleep. And so after Shiva was giving his teachings, he said, "Are you understanding what I'm saying?" And a voice said, "Of course." But it wasn't Uma-devi, because she was asleep. It was our fisherman inside the belly of the great beast. So the great god Shiva finished his teachings, and all of a sudden Uma-devi woke up with a start and said, oh, continue, my dear husband, with your tea." He said, "I've already told you I'm finished." And then he thought, well, if it wasn't you who were hearing these secrets, then who was it? And the voice from the leviathan said, "Well, it was me, wasn't it?" So the god Shiva said to his wife, being somewhat angry with her, he said, "Well, obviously, as fate would have it, this is the one who the teachings were for, and this is the one to whom I will give my initiation." So indeed he did. The great god Shiva gave initiation to this little fisherman and gave him what is called a sadhana, a practice. And then the god and his consort left, leaving our fisherman inside the belly of the great creature to practice his sadhana, which he did for 12 years. After these 12 years, again, as fate would have it, a great trawler came along and captured, harpooning the leviathan of the deep. It was such a huge creature that they had to bring it back to the beach. And when they did, to their very great surprise, when they, with great difficulty, opened the great carcass, out came our fisherman. When he told them his story and related that the name of the king who was ruling at the time when he was captured, you might say, they knew that his story was true. And something came over our fisherman. He had to dance. He danced with life. But as he danced and his feet trod on the rocks that surrounded the beach, the rocks became like sand, and his feet left imprints which can be seen even today, being the footsteps, the imprints of a realized being. And what the power of the secret imparted by the great god Shiva brought him to. To willingly suspend our disbelief, to recognize with these stories over these last days of demons and angels and time travel, so to speak. And if you deeply sit in that place, we call it Satchitananda, but my intellectual friend calls it a state of willing disbelief, suspension of disbelief. It's really the same place, isn't it? And when we do, something happens. Otherwise my friend wouldn't keep coming back all the time and going on with the airy-fairy stuff. Isn't it so? Because in the end, we do reach that point of emptiness, where the experience arises naturally for us. There's no more impediments, there's no more mind there. In the end, the fisherman says to all those who are surrounding, I have two secrets. One is that I was able to have these teachings imparted because of the accruement of my good deeds over my past life. What was the second secret that this fisherman has, that he relayed to these people? First, I was brought to this place because of past lives, because of a continuum. And what is the second secret imparted by this fisherman to those who are gathered, and continuously for the rest of his days? That we need to know. What would that fisherman have said? Leave it with you.